Alrighty, guys. We are going to jump right on in here for the sake of time. But I do want to welcome everybody back to the Sleuth Intuition channel. I'm your host, Patrick Vallejos. We are broadcasting to the world live from Phoenix, Arizona. The weather's getting better. Today we're going to go ahead and do a open discussion on Abby and Libby's case. You guys may refer to it as the Delphi murders, or better known as the Delphi murders. Today, what I would like to talk about is why it's important to remember the victims of violent crime, and also why people empathize or rally behind suspected killers awaiting trial, like Richard Allen and Brian Koberger. Those are the two topics I would like to get your opinions on. Also, we can talk a little bit about Dawn Perlmutter, the expert, ritualistic crimes expert. I was reading that transcript again today. And then everything in between. Good to see you, Joe. Boston Christian, Jerry, Nana. Welcome in, Linda. Pitbull. What up, Shane? Nana73. Mark and Indy. Growing Crazy. Beth, good to see you. Big Bird, what's up? My guy Farmer. Patty sees through. How are you? Welcome in, Hiawatha. Julia Burns, good to see you. Jabot. Audrey. What is up, Miss Dog Lover? Hello, Carrie. Kevin, what's up? Always good to see you in the live chat. Homie, don't play that. Linda says, why did they tear down the old CPS building? I don't know. Maybe they didn't want somebody to get hurt in there, or maybe people were using it to get high. It wasn't locked up very well. None of your business. Welcome in. What's up, Big Fish? Hope you got your hat. Should have been there by now. All right, let's start with this. Why is it important to memorialize or remember victims of violent crime? Anything I like, welcome in. Yeah, Hiawatha, they were trying to. They were trying to get it as part of the whole trail system, but they couldn't really negotiate a deal. I did a live stream on it a while back. The McCains were involved. Oh, okay, so it might be there. Just let me know because I'll track it and figure it out. So I found something online that I think is not well known about the drone flyover. All right, let's hear it. I think McCain wanted to turn it into like a little tourist shop. You know, you kind of walk it, maybe like a mini museum or something. But I guess the way it was all set up, they weren't able to get it done. Oops, sorry. Because their families are still suffering and the victims deserve to be remembered. Oh, they're going to suffer forever. And they definitely deserve to be remembered. Why else? Pitbull mom says, I don't understand it, but some high profile killers have romantic followers. Oh, yeah. Hybristophilia. We talk about that all the time. Is that what you think's going on with folks who are sympathizing? And we're not talking about convicted killers here. So we're not really talking about hybristophilia. We're talking about people who are suspects of violent crime and are awaiting trial. Why do you think they rally behind them? Why do you think they empathize with them? Julia says justice for the victims and families. Two, focusing on the victims rather than sensationalizing the crime. These were human beings who were robbed. Honoring them is the least we could do. Well, what do you say to people that say, well, just because they're victims, um, we don't need to prop them up like on pedestals. Like they're just, when we're discussing the crime, they're just a part of the crime. What do you say to them? Like they're nothing special. You know, they're just people. What's the thought process behind that? It's important because of the impact it has not only the victims but for generations of a family. Yeah, I usually refer to that on this channel as the nuclear fallout. What's up, Jer? Yeah, the druggies put an early free bid in on it. Welcome in, Molly. Willow. Fairly new here and haven't followed the case as much as most. I know the trial is coming up. Is it possible to do a recap from the start to finish? We kind of did that yesterday. Covered the timeline. Well, at least the first part of it. None of your business says the drone operator made a statement. His search was concentrated downstream as at the time they were missing. It was pitch dark, and he can't even say he flew over where they were at. You got a link? Keeping it real. What date does the trial start? October 14th. Do you think there could be more delays and why? Yeah, I keep hearing from a lot of people about a continuance, but that has to be something that the judge grants, and I don't see her doing that. I don't see justice has to be in danger, so to speak. There's something where it's affecting the potential to have justice, then we'll see a continuance. If anything is preventing justice. I just don't see that right now. That's why it's been so quiet. We did a live stream a few days ago. The calm before the storm. We've never seen 10, 9 days of silence, right? Well, at least not from the arrest date of Richard Allen. So something's up. Oh, yeah, I did a whole series called Everything. Go check it out. It's not in chronological order, but it is indeed everything. What's up, TJ? Jet ski theory was? Jet ski? Oh, shit, there's a jet ski theory? Oh, lordy lord. I don't know. Maybe DP was riding a jet ski and Ron Logan was chasing him on a horse. Sideways thinking. So if you guys care to comment on those few items there, why it's important to remember victims of violent crime, and why do people empathize and rally behind suspected killers awaiting trial? Two examples I gave were Brian Koberger and Richard Allen. Why? A lot of times, though, farmer, people get fear mixed up with admiration. It like affects the same part of the brain, so they get confused by it. A lot of times it's just fear. Oh yeah, women loved Richard Ramirez. Ted Bundy impregnated his wife while he was incarcerated. TJ, it was just someone's theory that the killer left by jet ski down Deer Creek. What is this, a James Bond movie? Sure. Sleuthintuition@gmail.com. Thanks. Sherry Wilson, plea deal in the works. That's what I think. They are bargaining. Keeping it real. I wonder if he will take a plea deal. I think he will. I think he will. All right, Willow. If you have any questions, let us know. Shoot me an email. The atrocity. Jibbo says, my mom says I'm the most handsome man she's ever seen. And she wouldn't lie. She's a mom. That sounds like my grandma. So handsome. God bless grandmas and mamas. We'd all be incels if it wasn't for grandma. Look at the handsome boy. You're so handsome. Joe Schmo. Did Ron Logan have a valid license to operate the horse? Nope. He got a DUI. I thought you knew that. Pat's jet ski theory. That's a new one. Koberger is a psychopath, in my opinion. Yeah, but he's not a convicted killer. I think the question is like, there's plenty of evidence against him. So why get behind him? Knowing that he could be this brutal killer of those young people. Like, what is it? What turns you into that person? Is it our lack of empathy that we're not that person? Or is it their ego that says, well, there's a small chance, they could be innocent and only I can bring that to the attention of the world. It takes me to do it. What is it? I really want to know. I don't have the answer. So if you think I have the answer, I don't. And I know a lot of you are convinced, let's say Brian Koberger is a killer, Richard Allen is a killer. And those same people will say, well, how can you be so sure? Like, well, you don't know. And I agree with that because I'm only about 70% sure that Richard Allen's the guy who killed Abby and Libby. But at the same time, they're criticizing folks that are out there who are 100% convinced Richard Allen is the killer. They're also 100% convinced that the crime scene was a ritualistic murder and that runes were placed over Abby and Libby. So they can be convinced of that, but they'll criticize folks over here for being convinced that Richard Allen is 100% guilty. The hypocrisy. Oh, yeah, those big twins. Yeah, they're famous. Well, here's a good one. Shane says, I think people empathize because of past trauma in their own lives. Well, you think they'd be more trying to understand the victim's point of view. I would hate to say that they relate because that's what draws me to true crime. And, I relate with the victims. I think to myself, I would hate for that to be my family member. I would hate to be in that situation. I would hate for that to be me. I would hate to be kidnapped off of a bridge and murdered in the woods and then left, my naked body left there and exposed like some kind of experiment. So I'm empathizing with them. And although I do have some concern of guilty people going to prison, I just feel like there's plenty of evidence against Richard Allen. So why would I ever empathize with him? So is that what's going on? They don't see the victims? Are we looking at people who are connecting through personality disorders? Are we seeing people who who are psychotic, who are clicking up together. I mean, that can't be it, right? Julie says, while the victims are most important, it's also important to understand the mind of the killers, violent offenders, so we can recognize potential warning signs in the future of offenders. I agree with that. So the question isn't remembering the killers and not the victims. We all know why we're interested in true crime, serial killers, because we're trying to learn the enemy. Who is it that's out there trying to hurt us? Because we wake up in the morning, we've gone through our schooling, we go to our jobs, we hang out with our friends and family, and we have this image of a world where everything is just safe. Your daughter asks, can I go to the corner? Can I go do this? I'm just going to go right out front. And then we see stories of, for instance, we covered a story not too long ago. A 10-year-old boy in New York City took out the trash. There's a small front yard, trash can sitting right outside his front door. He just happened to be taking out the trash at the very moment a sexual predator was walking by. And this 10-year-old boy was taken behind his own side of his own house and sexually assaulted. Most people would never even hear that story. They block it out of their mind. Like, that's not real. But why is it important to remember these victims? I think it helps for us to come to terms with that we are living in a dangerous place. It helps us accept, the painful reality. That's what it is, a painful reality. Miss C.D. Isaacs, welcome in. Hey, Mother of Dragons, what up? Good to see you. Oh, yeah, the Navy SEAL. He was a Navy SEAL. He parachuted in his scuba gear. And he planted a jet ski there the day before. Hey, what's up, Brad? Always good to see you. sleuthintuition@gmail.com. I don't know. Joe Smo says, it was sarcasm. No, you don't need a license to ride a horse. Not there anyway. Well, you do need a license if you take it on the freeway. That's a fact. Yep, conjugal visit. Crazy. Oh yeah, Shannon, I feel for her. For sure. He could have put her through hell. That sounds like fun. I don't know. It makes me think of Stockholm syndrome, Shane. What's up, Sherry? If he does take a plea, I hate that because we will never see the total evidence they have. We won't, but I'm sure the family will because he's going to have to tell it all. He's just not going to have to say it in court. He's just not going to have to listen to it said out loud to the world. But at some point, he has to say it. So even though you're right, we won't know, but thankfully the family members will know at that, they'll be told. Yeah, Miss Dog Lover. So why are there folks out there who are empathizing and even sympathizing with Koberger with all of the evidence that's out there? Why ignore the victims? And I understand they're kids and they're just living their lives, and it's Koberger who is the monster, right? He's the trophy apex predator that's, running around amongst us all. They were just people like us, living their life. So I've noticed a trend. The people who are supporting Koberger, supporting Richard Allen, want to minimize the attention that's given to the victims of violent crime, as if, they just happen to be there. So I think it's important to explain why they should be remembered. I think a lot of people don't realize the decisions that they're making and the way they operate. I don't think they realize that it's projecting who they really are. I think some people just miss that completely. So when you shit on the victims and you rally behind a suspected killer with plenty of evidence, right? There's probable cause. That's the law. You need probable cause to detain somebody. That's what they're doing. Now, why get behind him? Are they putting themselves in his shoes? What is it? Maybe that'll be a good exercise. I think that might be it. They're putting themselves in Richard Allen's shoes. What would I do if somebody had this much evidence against me? I just happened to be hiking at a trail that day, matching the guy's description. There, the time the girls disappeared, and now they're trying to say they found my bullet. Are these people supporting Richard Allen because if they were in that situation, they feel like they would be the victim at that point? That's got to be it, right? So why don't we do that? Why don't we put ourselves in Richard Allen's shoes? And you guys tell me what you would have done different. I mean, he came forward. It's not his fault that Dan Doolin fucked that up. And another question is, what does that have to do with Odinism and all that shit? All I know is if I was in Richard Allen's shoes and they arrested me for this murder, I wouldn't wait 2 years to go to trial. Right? If he's an innocent man, let's do this. Let's run through it then. That's got to be it. I mean, why else would they be supporting Richard Allen when there's all of this information, all of this evidence against him, and the brutality that happened to Abby and Libby? Yes, they were your everyday teenage girls, and it could have been anybody. Yeah, it could have. Could have been you, could have been your kids. That's why it's important to remember them. You need to have some kind of balance in this world. And when you have so much evil that happens in one place, you have to try to balance it out with the good. And by propping up Abby and Libby, that's what we're doing. And the reason that these Richard Allen lovers are supporting Richard Allen and downplaying the victims is because they are evil. I mean, I think it boils down to that. That's what they're relating to. That's what they're drawn to is the darkness. It's that simple, everybody. We're just looking at light and dark. We're watching the separation in real time. It's light and dark. Farmer says that's Doolin's territory. Jet ski makes sense. That's a good one. Truffles, what's up? Some people like to play devil's advocate. And I understand that. I like to play devil's advocate. I think it's important to look at things from all sides. But to talk shit about Abby and Libby and then support the suspected killer, we're not talking about just some suspect. We're talking about somebody who's in jail and being detained with probable cause. You know, it's all about the Fourth Amendment. Keeping it real says if he was going to take a plea deal, why wouldn't it have happened already? Like, why wait until the last minute? Well, if your attorneys still have cards to play, right? They have third party suspects they need to get in. They got confessions they need to throw out. They have appeals they're trying to get pushed through. You would want to wait until all of that clears. That's like all fodder, you know, pre-trial fodder. Yeah, that's more likely, Farmer. That's a visual right there. Dan Doolin riding around on a jet ski. And his little black army fatigues that he likes to wear. For violent offender sympathizers, it's sometimes twisted fangirl, boy, etc., whatever. Giving everyone the benefit of the doubt due to religious beliefs. They were wrong themselves in the past. I could see that. I think it has a lot to do with this victim mentality as well, right? The government's out to get me. They're just out to get a poor innocent man, and it was the Freemasons. My question is, what if it is Richard Allen? Like, why are you sympathizing with him? You sympathize with potential child killers? Or are you just a contrarian? And the fact that I say 70% means that there's a small chance that he's innocent, right? So I think that's what it boils down to. There's a chance he's innocent. Put yourself in his shoes. Would you want to be placed in solitary confinement? Would you want to be put in prison when typically you would await a conviction in county jail? Would you want to lose your house, potentially your marriage, your job? Put yourself in his shoes. I'll tell you right now, I would have taken a speedy trial. First and foremost. Yeah, exactly. And let's say it is a ritualistic killing. How does that somehow magically exclude Richard Allen? Well, there's no evidence that he's connected to any of that. Well, do you have evidence that he's connected to anything other than liking to play pool? Do you know anything about Richard Allen? Can you tell me any of his hobbies? Tell me one thing that he likes to do. Give me one connection. You don't know any of his connections. So how do you know that? Third party is mainly to confuse and distract the jury. They were banking on that. Exactly. And that just recently happened. Like we had everything, pretty much all of the cards are out on the table. And then as soon as they were called, right? We had this quietness. Oh shit, my phone just died. We had this quiet calm, and it's still quiet. But my prediction is on Monday or sometime this week, we'll see a status hearing. And then following that, we'll see a change in plea. I think I have a pretty good understanding of who Richard Allen is, if he's the guilty person. He has one more card to play. What's up, Sparky? Yeah, I'll take a look later. Thank you. Geez, that's horrible. Molly says, I think some people like to take the other side and go overboard with it. Not just reasonable doubt and waiting for evidence. Like, it's not like they're violating his Fourth Amendment, right? It doesn't matter what we think. Like, his rights are not being violated. Welcome in, Vertigo Brain. Good to see you. Welcome in, CJK. Part 2. People are narcissistic. They make up their mind and stick to what they believe is right. Yeah, so that kind of goes to the ego part that I was referring to. No matter what evidence follows, they don't want to be proven wrong, whether or not they consciously realize it. Yeah, I feel like they think in their mind, if they don't do it, nobody else will, right? Kind of like defense attorneys. And it's, of course, much more real. That's more realistic for a defense attorney to say, because it's actually true. You know what I mean? They are the last ditch effort for the accused, not some weird potential child killer supporter. I think we're getting close. Hiawatha says, not everyone is psychotic or has a personality disorder. I hope not. But I think trying to understand people who would support Richard Allen, I think that they might. Because you have the same people who support Richard Allen, they have something in common, which is this strange disrespect for the victims and the victims' families. So not only do they not support victims and victims' families, they support the accused. So they have those things in common. And they don't believe that remembering the victims, they don't believe that's an important part of true crime. So I think those people might have a personality disorder. I think that's why they're able to click together. They put themselves in the shoes of Richard Allen. We know psychopaths they're only worried about themselves. So if these people are putting themselves in Richard Allen's shoes and they're not able to look at the victims as actual people, but instead as just objects that are part of this crime, that's what I'm seeing. We're seeing a group of people who are connecting because they have those things in common. Shane says, I believe it's biological and in development stages of the brain. If abuse occurs, it's like it doesn't function right. But I'm no professional. I agree with you. Yeah, no sides, CJ. CJK says people like to choose sides for the majority of things due to opinions, not a lot of neutral territory. And what about people who just like to argue? Going back to the devil's advocate thing, the whole gaslighting part of it. You think they get off on, let's say it's like this huge challenge, Everybody thinks this guy's guilty and the cops are after him and they got all this evidence. What if I can convince others otherwise? Maybe they get off on that shit. It's like, ha ha ha, I thought he was guilty this whole time, but I was able to convince you he wasn't. You idiot. Mark and Indy, here's another twist for you. I don't think the Odinist defense was ever the planned defense. I think it was all a ploy, so they didn't have to disclose their true defense strategy, which is well, they're not going to bring in people like Don Perlmutter if they weren't serious about that. You were serious about that? I think so. I think we're just looking at light and dark. People relate to Richard Allen. It's almost as if, yeah, he's guilty. So what? You haven't provided enough evidence. So I would hate for my evil ass to be in that position when I've gone through all the effort of hiding all of the evidence. That's not fair. They don't care if he's innocent or guilty. They just are saying you don't have enough evidence. Even if he was guilty, you still need more. And they can't see the victims. They don't look at them as people, just like Richard Allen didn't look at them as people. Because if he did, he wouldn't have killed them. And the only reason they see Richard Allen as a person is because they're able to put themselves in his shoes. Oh, America. Because victims should not be forgotten on how they passed. A sentenced perpetrator is nothing but a number and are not memorable. So we're not talking about sentenced perpetrators. We're talking about people who are awaiting trial or going through a trial. They haven't been convicted yet. But there's a good chance that they're guilty. Knowing that there's a good chance that they're guilty, why rally behind them? Knowing that you could be supporting a child killer. It's almost like the ego is saying, well, I'm going to take the risk. Who else is going to do it? Nobody else has the courage. Maybe it's a hero mentality. I'll save you, Rick. I'm coming, Rick. Not yet, Sparky, but I'm going to. I got sidetracked. What's up, Debbie? Hope you're doing well. Sometimes I have neutral thoughts, but honestly, not often. I just believe Alan is guilty based on his own information and from what's been said in the past, and it's been validated enough for me to buy hearings. Yeah, for sure. There's plenty of evidence for him to be detained and for him to face trial. Hey, Knockface coming through. Thanks for sponsoring today's live stream. Take care, Jer. Julie says, I think it's also important to remember victims to learn how to appreciate every single day we have just being alive. Sounds cheesy, but as you get older and you go through shit, you learn that firsthand. Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with everything you're saying about that. You know, they weren't just people, they were people who were brutally murdered and traumatized the world. They're not just people. You know, victims aren't just people who are in the wrong place at the wrong time. Yeah, that might be part of it, but they're not just that. And I think it's the people who can't relate to that who are projecting who they really are and where their allegiance is or lie. Yeah, that goes back to the hybristophilia. What's up, badass? Got a melodies. Welcome in. Yeah, Sparky. Like what? I agree with that. So why did they want justice for Richard Allen? I always hear justice for Richard Allen is justice for Abby and Libby. Like, how twisted is that shit? Nobody wants to see an innocent man go to prison. But when you have people out there disrespecting the name of Abby and Libby, disrespecting their family and friends that cared about them and who were scarred by this, but getting behind Richard Allen, like that's his attorney's jobs. That's his family's job. They can worry about that. He's not in jail because they're setting him up. There's plenty of information and evidence to make sure he's in jail right now. Linda Harder says, I keep thinking at the last minute they'll have the trial televised, but not the jury selection. I agree with that. If this goes to trial, it will be televised. I've been telling the crew that for a while. So remember, you heard it here first, guys. And that's if they go to trial. But if what I think I know is accurate, Richard Allen's not going to do that. I hear that, Molly. Do you think Koberger was also posting as Papa Rogers? I don't know. We talked about that. That was crazy. We might need to cover the Koberger case again here in the near future. Shane says that's a great question. Great point, Sleuth. I watched another channel an hour ago, and I heard seeing Abby and Libby's names mentioned once or twice, but yet free Allen and due process 100 times. Well, we've been kind of talking about due process. We mentioned the Fourth Amendment. Isn't that due process? Or part of due process? Yeah, Shane. It's like that same. It's like a group of people who it's upsetting to them that we want to prop up Abby and Libby in their memory. It's kind of like when you mention the name like Jesus Christ around people who are dark hearted. It makes them kind of they get kind of like squeamish. You know, they kind of shriek. It's like nails on a chalkboard for them. That must be the same thing when you say the name of Abby and Libby, or whenever you mention or try to remember victims of violent crime. It must be nails on a chalkboard to them. Jacqueline, what's up? How you doing? Anything I like? DL Bodkin says, I'd be in the search party helping look for the girls, especially if I happen to be there. Okay, so we're back to putting ourselves in Richard Allen's shoes. He did not do that. I agree. You were there and you have a daughter. Why weren't you, your wife, and your family out there? I agree. There you go. And that kind of goes to the ego as well, right? None of your businesses. People who invested years into believing this murder was a grand conspiracy refused to believe how simple it was. That's why. Yeah, I think that's partially right. Yep, we've said that before. Wabbit. Wascally Wabbit. If this was my child, I wouldn't accept a deal. If he goes to jail, fine. If not, he is mine. I have no empathy for a child killer. Oh, you're saying as a family member, you wouldn't want a deal? You don't want to sit through that court process, through the trial process, looking at the crime scene photos, reliving it over and over and over while Richard Allen turns around and smirks at his wife. We all have an opinion of what we would or wouldn't do. Thank you, Joey. Thank you, Boston. You guys rock. Knockface, thank you guys. Now I've interviewed a few fathers whose daughters were murdered on this channel, and they've always set me straight. And even private conversations that I've had with victims' family members. You know, everybody talks tough. Oh, if that was my daughter or if that was my wife, I'd kill everybody. First of all, that wasn't your wife, that wasn't your daughter, that wasn't your brother, that wasn't your mother, and it didn't happen to you. So you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. But I was guilty of it too. You know, oh, if this happened to me, I'd make those sons of bitches pay. It's just not that easy, guys. It's not that easy. Dragon Keeper, what's up? Going to Delphi in October for Memorial Walk, my second visit to the bridge. Nice. See, there's some great support. When you have something evil that happens, you guys need to balance it out, especially when you're able to. Remembering the victims is that balance. Yes, they were in the wrong place at the wrong time. Yes, they were just girls. Yes, they were just people. Yes. But now what happened to them makes it a much more bigger thing for them. They're much bigger than that now. And the fact that you don't want to remember them tells me that the goodness that's involved in all of this is like nails to a chalkboard to you. You don't find comfort here. You don't find comfort with those who are supporting the victims of violent crime. You're not comfortable there. It's like the devil hearing the name of Jesus. Nails to a chalkboard. Even if you see it or you don't. It's clear to me. TJ, yes, there are really Koberger supporters. I did a whole series on Koberger when this all broke, and people are still, I still have people watching and commenting. And all of the recent comments are supporters of Koberger. And they're just like the cheerleaders here with the Delphi case when it comes to Richard Allen. They're just the same kind of people. That's where they're comfortable. They're more comfortable with Koberger than they are with the 4 victims. Get in where you fit in. Yeah, that's a strange situation, CJ, and hopefully we'll find answers to that. I'm a firm believer in the Constitution. I just don't see Rick's rights being violated. The same people who say that they care about his rights and this and that, they couldn't wrap their mind around why he was being held in a prison. That was to protect him. They didn't care about him. They just wanted to keep whatever they could feed into the sick narrative. But if I saw anything like as far as an alibi, if Richard Allen could provide an alibi, if you can show me that there's a good chance that he's innocent, I would support the man for sure. And if you could show me another reason other than those sticks and what appears to be a handprint on a tree that there was odinist involved, I'll get behind that too. Yeah, nobody would blame you for that, Mark. I surely wouldn't. As long as you're cooperating, let's say you're father of a victim or a missing child. You want to give me a lie detector test? That's fine. You can ask me these questions. Do I know where my daughter is? Did I have anything to do with her the fact that she's missing? I'll answer those questions, and then whatever you need to make sure that you have something to judge it against. Is my name Patrick? Things like that. I think you have to cooperate. But if you're just somebody like Richard Allen and they're like, hey, I want to talk to you, I wouldn't blame anybody that said they wanted to get a lawyer. Brad Weber got a lawyer right away. And he was criticized for that to this day. It's kind of hard. Joe Schmo says it's kind of hard to get a speedy trial when the judge improperly boots your defense team. Well, they should have already been at a trial before those people were booted out. So you want to make excuses. And I think that should have gone to the Supreme Court, which it did. And now that they were reappointed, go right back to a speedy trial. They had every opportunity to do that. They didn't do it. It was delay after delay after delay. Whatever happened to catching Nick on the back foot? And you forget why they were. And Judge Gold didn't get rid of the defense team. They quit. Yeah, she said, I'm going to fire you anyway. They should have allowed that to happen. But instead, they quit. And you forget why this all happened. Because they agreed to keep things quiet for a certain amount of time. And instead, they do a press release and they allow two different types of leaks. They leaked the Discovery Index to a fucking weird YouTuber who was possibly connected in some weird way. I mean, you don't know that. And then you allow the crime scene photos to be leaked. So it's not like they just got booted. They were deemed incompetent. The Supreme Court didn't agree. That's why we have the Supreme Court. Where's the speedy trial after that? Oh, there's just so much discovery. There's terabytes of discovery. Oh, it's overwhelming. What's up, Periwinkle? America, Richard Allen should have never ate the poo. Well, that might be another option. If he starts eating poo again, let's say the morning of the 14th, they might, that's going to be a delay. They'll have to have a competency hearing. That could be like 3 weeks to 3 months. I think more likely 3 weeks. Mother of Dragon says, I would have certainly took an attorney to speak to law enforcement. Yeah, especially after they did served a search warrant on you and took your car. But there's that cockiness again, right? If we're talking about a guilty man, I'm smarter than you. They all suffer from that shit. All these killers. Rarely do I come across a case where the killer doesn't, in his own mind, believe that he's smarter than law enforcement. And very rarely are they ever, you know. Typically, they're not high IQ. There's a few that are. I think Ted Bundy was high IQ. Or higher IQ. Above average, I guess. Oh, Lord. The older I get, the more true crime is triggering me, but empathy is something I have. It's very addictive. Yeah, and there's some cases where we can tell like people are innocent. And I said this time and time again, we're not pro law enforcement on this channel. We're not pro prosecution, pro defense. We're pro truth. We cover cases where we support the accused. We cover people who have been falsely accused and falsely imprisoned. We don't ignore that because those are also victims. We relate to the victims. But we're talking people who are proven to be innocent with evidence. Right now, it's to the contrary. They have evidence against Richard Allen that's basically saying that he's a guilty person. To ignore that, it just makes you wonder. Like, what the fuck is up? What's up with you, bro? Well, it's because they don't relate to Abby and Libby. They don't empathize with them or their family. The real killer's out there, and Richard Allen's the victim. He's being railroaded. You know, they put themselves in his shoes. What if that was me? Who's going to come rescue me? When I'm being bullied by Holman and tortured in prison because people won't shut up and the lights are too bright. Can't get on Facebook with this damn tablet. What's up, Anna? Underweger, Austrian Ripper, became an author in prison, and many people worked hard to free him. First year out, he unalived 11 more women. Caught and convicted again, unalived himself. Well, there you have it. Makes you wonder about the West Memphis Three. And the one thing that even puts me at 70% that Richard Allen is guilty, and the only reason I say 70 and not 99% is because I don't know everything that's going on in the case. I don't know all the ins and outs. But really, for me, it's mainly the bullet. So if they can, for whatever reason, argue against that bullet throughout the court, I think he has a good chance of being let go. And I think he should be, because that's what does it for me. Right? You can't have a guy that fits the description of the bridge guy who admits to being there at the time of the murders, and then some weird, crazy coincidence, his bullet is just next to the bodies in pristine condition. You're talking about a guilty man at that point. Well, what about corruption? Holman planted the bullet there. It's the Freemasons. They're sticking up for their buddy and their brother, Brad Holder. He doesn't really have an alibi, but Richard Allen does, right? Craziness. Eight nurses in Illinois using a gun and knife all by himself. One guy managed to kill 8 women and assault a woman before them. Yeah, it doesn't take much. Thomas Jerome Bruce. One point was thought to be the Delphi killer. He's this little guy. And he was able to control and assault 3 women. He ended up killing one of them. Like, how do you sexually assault without even tying them up? How do you sexually assault 2 women? How do they, one, not run? Well, the answer's simple. They murdered the 3rd woman in front of the other 2. That's what he did. That's what these evil people do. They destroy lives. To support that says a lot about you. Oh, he's not convicted yet. He might be. And then what? Oh, well, at least I stood up for him. At least I had the courage. What if it was you in prison and you were innocent? Well, we definitely would be having a speedy trial, and I wouldn't be making any excuses about it. I would say, put me on that stand, put me in that courtroom, and let's see it. Prove that that's my bullet. If he's innocent, there's no way they can prove that. And there's no reason for his bullet to be right there. Absolutely no. There's absolutely no way. You know, it's not like he was down there doing target practice or anything like that. If they can scientifically prove that that bullet was cycled through their gun, Richard Allen is the Delphi killer. It's that simple. Oh, Diddy's going to roll over. Crime Knight seems convinced Richard Allen is innocent. Crime Knight's a fucking tool. Fuck that guy. He thinks Kelsey had something to do with the murders. You know, it's either DP, Kelsey, Mike Patty, Ron Logan. So what, are they all in this shit together or what? With the help of Nick McClelland and the Masons. Like, which one is it? Can you pick one? Yeah, fuck that guy. And the horse he rode in on without a license. Debbie says people with huge egos like to support the underdog so they can play the hero role. Yeah, that's what I'm getting, that hero vibe. If you're not going to do it, I must. And their own ego, not truly about guilt or innocence. And I don't have the answers. I'm just telling you, like, I'm trying to figure it out. But honestly, I believe it's just good versus evil. And when you say the names of Abby and Libby, all they hear are nails on that chalkboard. And when you say Richard Allen is innocent, it's like getting a massage or something. That tells me everything I need to know. Now, and I'm not here to say that I believe Richard Allen is guilty. I'm saying the evidence that they've listed, and it's real simple. It's those 3 things. It's the timeline, Richard Allen's own words, and the bullet. If you can get rid of any of those, that'll drop me down to 50%, and you shouldn't be in jail with those odds. So if you can prove that he wasn't there when the girls were kidnapped, I'll support him being freed. If you can show me and prove that he has an alibi, I'll support. I will now be part of this crew, because that would make Richard Allen a potential victim at that point. Right now, he's a potential killer of 2 babies. Oh, but why are you calling them babies, Pat? Because they were. When you have 13-year-old teenage girls, trust me, they're babies. Welcome in, Stephanie. I would hate to see you in his situation, Patrick. Well, I wouldn't be eating my own shit, and I wouldn't be confessing to something that I didn't do. And I sure as hell wouldn't be waiting around long enough to have potential psychosis, because I'm going to be pushing for a speedy trial. I'm not going to fuck around and sit around for 2 years. If you can prove that that's my bullet, let's do it. I can't wait to see this shit, because I know damn well that you can't. That's not what Richard Allen's saying. He's saying, oh shit, I got to get this thrown out. You 2 fuckers need to get busy getting that search warrant thrown out. I'm fucked. That's what he's saying. You want to put yourself in his shoes? Well, if you're innocent, you're going to do the opposite of what he's done. You're not going to eat your own shit. You're not going to be asking for forgiveness. Richard Allen says, I found God so that I can be forgiven and I can go to heaven. If I can be forgiven and go to heaven, I can see my family again, because I sure as hell ain't going to see him now, because I'm about to go to prison for the rest of my life. That's not what an innocent man would say. Oh, well, he was in solitary confinement. He doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't know what he's confessing to. Okay. So he's really not looking for God. He's just some crazy guy reading the Bible. He doesn't know what he's saying. He's just running around eating his own shit and carrying the Bible. Yeah, I don't relate to that. Sorry. I'm not on that team. But you go be the Richard Allen's hero. You go in there and you do what nobody else was brave enough to do. While you talk shit about Kelsey German, who was only 16 years at the time. 16 years old, guys. That's awful. Imagine if that was your daughter, your sister, your best friend. You got to watch her cry when nobody's looking. Imagine how many times she cried when nobody was watching. Bet you never even think about that. Yep. That's my prediction right now. We're going to see a status hearing, and then shortly after the status hearing, probably maybe even this Monday, and then probably by the following Friday, you'll see the change in plea. We'll see something like Richard Allen get 40 years, and he'll waive his right to appeal. And then everybody will talk about that for a year about how he got such a light sentence, and if I was the family members, I would have done this and done that, you know. So we'll have a year to hear that shit and how Richard Allen, they were able to successfully get him to finally confess, right? They forced him to confess instead of accepting it for what it really is as a confession, right? He was coerced. And then they'll still continue to try to get him out or whatever. But anybody that waives their right to an appeal, they are 100% guilty. The reason they do that, because they just want to get on with their life. Time to go to prison, lock me up. I did it. That's for sure badass. And that's what these killers do. They make these promises, right? Like, don't worry, just do what I tell you. We're going to cross this creek right now. I know it's cold. Just do it. And I won't hurt you if you just do what I tell you. But they never will ever do what they say. They're going to hurt you every time. 10 out of 10 times. 10 times out of 10. If they weren't going to hurt you, they wouldn't have a gun or a knife out threatening you, kidnapping you. The only reason they're taking you anywhere is so that somebody doesn't see what they're about to do. Julia, exactly the fuck the system. Yeah, it's all these anarchists. People, oh my God, give me a break. It's their own selfish agenda they are projecting onto the livelihoods of victims and their families. Petty and hypocritical. It is hypocritical. On one hand, you guys can't believe that Richard Allen is 100% guilty, but they're allowed to believe that the crime scene is 100% ritualistic. That's gross. Yeah. She was trying to spare their dignity, and look what they did. Get rid of them in open court going forward. Let it all be seen and heard. Yep, I agree keeping it real. I just see a man who potentially could be a killer of two young girls who definitely didn't deserve to die, and he'll have his day in court. Like I said, if they can remove any one of those three pieces of information, I mean, you'll see me start supporting Richard Allen. Give me a verified alibi. Show me a nexus to these third-party suspects. Any one of those three things, and that changes everything for me. But right now, those three things, and watching what they have been doing to try to hide the search warrant and try to protect them, try to protect Richard Allen from having to face the evidence of that unspent bullet. I mean, they are seriously worried about that. Because how do you explain that? I mean, ask yourself. There's absolutely no reason for his unspent bullet there to be there next to those girls. Not one reason. Not when you're the guy that's looking like, dressed like bridge guy, who was the guy who was witnessed on the bridge, and you tell me that you're on the bridge. You're the guy driving past the Hoosier Harvest store. You know, the timeline is solid. You're the guy who doesn't have an alibi. And now we're connecting you to the crime scene? Like, that tells me that we're looking at a guilty person or somebody that knows everything that happened down there, at the very least. Yeah, Shane, it's upsetting. It is upsetting. So I'm not the only one that thinks reprehensible YouTube creator in South is he South African? I don't know what he is. I think he's in Australia. But fuck that pudgy little bastard. Run, tell that. Catch me outside. How about that? Gibbles' narcissists are victims that play on it throughout their lives. They were never supported through their trauma, nothing to do with choices. They live a specific path and never move from it. Stephanie says it's called hybristophilia. Yeah, we talked about that at the beginning of the stream. I think it's different. I think that's with convicted killers, you know, like a Ted Bundy or Richard Ramirez. But what about those like Brian Koberger, where he's not convicted? Like, we don't know. All we know is that through due process and probable cause and things like that, they have enough evidence to hold him, and they're running through the process. But we don't know 100% if he's guilty. We just know they have a strong case. What do you call the support for those people? I think it has a lot to do with ego, a hero mentality, hero complex. Like, you're just going to go along with the prosecution. Who's going to stick up for Rick? I have to. I'll do it. Captain Savaho. Yeah, it's very strange keeping it real. Because the one thing that goes hand in hand with people who are supporting Richard Allen, even though there's a pile of evidence against him, is the hatred for the victims, the conspiracies about Mike Patty, um, the name calling of Kelsey German, people who talk poorly about Becky Patty as if she's trying to control the narrative and things like that. Like, what the fuck is wrong with these people? Now, it'd be one thing if you were supporting Richard Allen and his right to quote unquote due process, or, you know, to make sure his rights aren't violated, and then you didn't do all the other shit, then it'd be different. But these two things seem to go hand in hand. Like, they didn't have a problem accusing Richard Allen or Ron Logan. They don't have a problem accusing Patrick Westfall and Brad Holder. But Richard Allen, oh, shame on you. They don't have anything against Richard Allen. Okay, him being there, his timeline, and his bullet, he looks like the bridge guy. Yeah, they don't have anything. Well, they definitely have a nexus. That's for damn sure. Stephanie says they would never have arrested and charged him if they couldn't prove it. Exactly. And it's with that bullet. So if they can go through the trial process and prove that, or if they fail to prove that bullet was cycled through Richard Allen's gun, I'll support him. Congratulations. I apologize. Yeah, the death penalty, that's a tough one. I don't know if I support the death penalty. It's like one of those things I struggle with. CJK. Sleuth, that is my hubs. He likes to argue way too much. Just for the sake of arguing. Some people will argue. They don't even support that stance. They look at arguing as a sport. They look at gaslighting like it's a skill. It's crazy. Sparky. People who get off on that devil advocates should be defense attorneys. I don't know. I think some defense attorneys, I think they truly believe that they are the last ditch effort, the last hope. And they really are. Don't like turmoil and try not to argue. Yeah, I could care less. I'm not going to argue over it. Now, if you want to have a discussion, we can do that all day because I'm all about understanding. We can hold hands on the path to truth. You don't need to try to kick me off the cliff on the way there. This is not about me, but we later found out my brother's killer had previous specifically climbing naked through a woman's window. Very dangerous individual. Yeah, and it seems like people like that are being let go. What do I tell my imaginary friends now? Yeah, marketing to attack the timeline. We haven't seen any of that. It's that simple. Attack the timeline. Because coincidences do happen. Like, yeah, maybe that is his bullet. He goes to the trail all the time. Maybe he dropped it on the trail and then somebody who walked out there just happened to leave it right there. Like, I'm the kind of person, if I'm walking, I see a bullet on the ground, I'm just going to pick it up. I'm just going to mess with it, look at it, look at the back, see who the manufacturer is. Maybe even just put it in my pocket. But it's those three things combined. And then the lack of a few others, right? Like the no alibi. Like, just give me your alibi, dude. Like, even if it was that you were home alone. Give me something. Take care, farmer. Alan had a history on jobs jumping out and scaring women. Where'd you hear that at? I don't know. That might be too obvious. Yeah, definitely. Whatever his fantasies were, he made them real. They they became manifest. Tamara, what more evidence do we need? Guarantee they have more during trial. They don't need more. All they need is for those three things and a few other things to not exist, and they're good. They might not have all the answers, but they're to me that's proof that he was involved. Hey Heather, good to see you. Oops, sorry guys. We got cheeks flex with a big flex. White knights be white knighting. Nah, I mean. Thanks, cheeks. Thanks for being a member. Carrie with the super sticker. Damn, you guys are awesome. According to Lene, welcome to the Sleuth Crew. Damn, you guys are showing a lot of love today. Thank you. All right, make sure you guys give According to Lene a warm welcome. So that's one thing I want you guys to pay close attention to. You'll see it. You'll see that they have these two things in common: lack of respect for the victims and their families and friends, and a huge respect and admiration for the accused. He could have been taking oxycodone. I think there's a good chance if Richard Allen's the killer, he was high as hell. That's been a theory I've been working on, that he really never went to sleep from the night before. Maybe he left work like around 2-ish and then went out somewhere. I don't know, maybe even in Peru. Maybe he was high or drunk into the night and into the early mornings, riding the high. Couldn't control his fantasies. Suffering from mental health, maybe under the influence. And Abby and Libby paid the ultimate price. What's up, Frank? Welcome in. Mary C. Charles Godwin. Yo. Stephanie, thank you. Yeah, we're not idolizing Libby and Abby. We're not worshiping Libby and Abby. We're remembering them. We're trying to bring back a little bit of balance. So much evil was put forth. All we need is a little bit of good, some positive energy, remembering the victims and not disrespecting their family members is a good way to do that. What's up, Joey? Thank you for the super sticker. Appreciate you. Thank you, Sparky. Anna Melodies. The most likely BK post was the one where he said he was in the woods of Pennsylvania or something. Oh, yeah, I remember that. Yeah, we need to cover that case again. Yep, I agree with that. Those are the shoes that I'm in. You know, what if that happened to me? What if that happened to my family, one of my friends? Not, oh, what if that was me and I was in prison? Because I definitely wouldn't be doing what Richard Allen is doing. So it's up to you whose shoes you want to be in. But the shoes that you pick, you may not know it, but it tells me a whole lot about you, whether you like it or not. So stop that right now. Stop it. Yep, Jeff Buziak. I learned a lot from him. You know, we learn a lot about every case that we cover. We're just not on a war path to try to prove, you know, that we were right. We're here to learn. We're here to learn about our enemies, and how to show more respect and kindness, and how we can help victims and their family members and things like that. Especially when you start building up a platform. You know, every time I cover a case and one of their family members comments or emails me like, "Thank you, I appreciate that." I just tell them like, "This is why I do what I do. This platform is being built for you specifically."
Excellent.
Yeah, don't go anywhere, Sparky. We're gonna hang out here for another five minutes or so. He has plenty. He's got plenty. Oop, did I miss Redfoot? What up? Good to see you, Redfoot. All right, I'm gonna zip past a whole lot of these comments. Sorry about that. Yeah, I think that's awesome that they did that. They should do something really nice for the Flora 4. That case needs a big break. Yep, I agree with that, Sparky. I believe this case is pretty cut and dry. No conspiracy, no corruption. I don't see any signs of that. And if I did, I'm definitely not going to ignore it. I don't have any allegiance to any of these investigators or this law enforcement. This team of investigators or Judge Gall. I could care less. But right now they're doing their job. Well, not officially none of your business, the death penalty, but it should have already been presented and discussed from what I understand, what I've been told. I don't see any way they make a deal other than life, no parole. The outrage of anything less would be, yeah, there's outrage all the time in many cases. And really it's about making a deal, getting it done. If they give him 40 years, that is life. He would get out when he was 90 years old. So in a way, that is a life sentence. But they're going to talk with the families, and they're going to say something like, "Hey, look, this is what we're going to offer him. If we do this, he's going to waive his right to an appeal, and this will be over. You guys can start to heal." You have to weigh your options. But yeah, there's a lot of outrage with a lot of these cases. But it's about the uphill battle in that courtroom. It's about people calling it a practice trial, having to go through the appeal process. Like, that sounds like a nightmare. But yeah, there's a lot of cases out there where people who are convicted of murder with multiple victims, and they get like 20 years. Has a lot to do with what kind of evidence they have, what are their odds, what kind of jury they're dealing with, what they can prove in that courtroom. It all matters. It's not all about emotions, not in that courtroom. It's about facts. After what we have just gone through in my community, it is about the victims and their families, not about the person that committed the horrific crime. What about somebody who's being accused of committing a horrific crime? Don't they need a hero? Who's going to stand up for them? Who's going to stand up for the Richard Allens of this world? Joey Sleuth, regardless of what their reason was, they did to Richard Allen before he is convicted is wrong and a crime. What they did to Richard Allen before he was convicted? You mean by them keeping him in solitary confinement? Not quite sure I understand. Yeah, I'm always curious about that, Jacqueline. I wonder if we'll ever know. She seems like a tough kid. Actually, Anna, she really is in hiding. She's just not out in the front. Who is Brad Weber? Brad Weber, the Webers own the property just across the creek from the crime scene. That's the house with the private drive. So if you follow that private drive, it'll take you right. That's their street. They own that road. But yeah, he had a Sig Sauer 40 caliber just like Richard Allen's. His bullet didn't match. We learned that a long time ago. Not sure. Yeah, so there's two properties on the south end of the bridge. The Weber property is to the left. Can you plead the fifth during a polygraph? No, you would just refuse the polygraph. But I think as like a family member of the victim, you'd be doing a disservice to the investigators or to the investigation or your own family member who's passed. That's one thing I firmly believe in. Take that lie detector test. You guys can agree on certain questions, like keep it specific. If you need my phone, if you need my computer, if you need my car, whatever you need, you got it. Because they need to clear you out of that way. They're going to put the blinders on and they're going to see you acting strange. and they're going to get consumed by it. And now you're fucking everything up at that point. So I'm a firm believer in that. Do everything that you can to get cleared as quick as possible because you're burning daylight. Yeah. There's so much discovery. Yep, sounds like an excuse. Well, the prosecutor has to organize all that discovery too, so you better catch him on his back foot. Don't give him a time to get organized. Don't give him any that opportunity. I don't give a shit how many terabytes there are. I'm not going to give them time to go through there. Fucking railroad me. I mean, it's that simple. If you can prove that that bullet belongs to me, then let's see it. Because there's no damn way. That's not what happened with Richard Allen. They tried to use the Odinist stuff as exculpatory, as information that was withheld from Diener to throw out the search warrant. That didn't work. They tried to get him admitted as alternative suspects. That didn't work. I just don't see this going to trial. And even if Richard Allen confesses officially, his supporters are still going to figure out a way. Oh, he had to. It's either that, what were his options? And that is true. That does happen where people do confess and take plea deals. It is something that happens. But you have to take it case by case. Like the guys who were accused of plotting against Whitmer, Governor Whitmer. You had two that went to trial and they were acquitted. But before the third suspect went to trial, he took a plea deal for like 14 years. He's fighting it now, and he might even be out now. But that's a good example right there. So that's what they'll say. We'll have 2 or 3 years of that. Cases where people pleaded out when they were guilty. But there's nobody that's ever, pled to 40, 50 years. Like that's the worst case scenario. That's your life. Nobody's going to plead to a worst case scenario. That's the reason they avoid going to trial, is to avoid that worst case scenario. They're not going to take a plea that is that worst case scenario. So for Richard Allen to take a 40-year plea sounds horrible, but I mean, that's life. That is life. What is he going to do? Come out and spend 5 years in some kind of old folks home for felons? The only reason he would ever accept a deal like that is to avoid his family from hearing all of that shit that's going to come out in trial. And definitely nobody's going to waive their right to an appeal. So, but you're going to hear the Richard Allen cheerleaders. You're going to hear them. They're going to be screaming that he took a deal because, what were his options? He had no options. He just wanted the abuse to stop. They'll come up with all kinds of shit. Jacqueline says it's hard to believe that Richard Allen's wife had no suspicion. Well, I'm sure she had suspicion, or maybe it even popped in her mind. But it's easy. I think it'd be easy for her to argue away. Like, that's my husband. He's not capable of that. Plus, he talked to the cops. I made sure. Like, I knew he was on the trails that day. But I also know that he went and spoke to law enforcement. And then after the new direction presser, when they're saying the old sketch, which actually looks more like Richard Allen, is no longer a person of interest. Oh, I mean, that sealed the deal for her. In the back of her mind, it's like, oh, it's weird. Like, I know he's the bridge guy, but why do they keep saying that the bridge guy is a suspect? Must be some kind of strategy. Try to reason it away with help, really, from the investigators. Plausible deniability. Yeah, it's the right to remain silent, too. Yeah, I could see that. Bodkin. Greasy fingers. I wonder if we will eventually get to see the confessions. Yeah, and even if he is guilty, those confessions um could have been him malingering. Maybe he was under some kind of psychosis and still be guilty. Yeah, they don't need those confessions. But they have them. That's not good for Richard Allen. Why would they arrest the wrong person in such a high profile case? Well, they wanted to get elected as sheriff. Duh. That's why, Stephanie. Hey, Beach Fairy, what's up? How you been? I'm well. How you doing? Good to see you. Hope everything's going good for you on that side of the world. Hold it down. Joey, you are right, Sleuth. Most of them killers they think are smarter than law enforcement, but law enforcement tells people if you did nothing wrong, you don't need a lawyer. Well, yeah, that's what they say. But we all know better. The thing is, you get a lawyer and you still cooperate. No lawyer's going to tell you not to take a polygraph. Unless it's like, I don't know, you're being charged with bank robbery or something. But if your daughter's missing or has been murdered, like, why would you not? Why would you want them to focus on you? Like, if your attorney's telling them that, I'm sure you could even get immunity. Like, oh, if you find like a conversation where I was picking up pot or something, you can't charge me. Like, give me immunity from anything. Like, oh, we found your illegal cable box. That's a federal charge, buddy. Or a lot of times you have witnesses or people who are involved. They don't want to come forward because they were doing drugs or they're a drug dealer or, they're running some kind of criminal enterprise. And law enforcement will say, hey, look, we're not, we'll give you immunity for all of that. We're not here for that. We're not going to charge you for any of the drug stuff. We don't care about that, man. We just want to know what you know about this murder that took place. If Alan's acquitted, yeah, I think about that all the time. Be very interesting. And that happens too. Can't remember which case it was. I wish I could remember. It was on Cold Case Files. And this young girl was raped and murdered and found in some old barn. And they had this guy that was pretty much had solid evidence against him, just like Richard Allen does. Nothing like a bullet or anything like that. But I think he just happened to. It was more like a Ron Logan situation, but a little bit more. And everybody was like, "This is our guy." But he went through trial, and they proved that it wasn't him. Even the family was like, "Yeah, they proved it. That he's not the guy." And he was acquitted, and the case is still unsolved. He does interviews and all kinds of shit till this day. I'll have to find that case. But yeah, he was everybody looked at him like he was the devil, and then one day he wasn't. Badass. They want harsh punishment, but after the fact, when the dopamine rush is over, those same people start to pity the convicted. Yeah, it's really weird. It's that contrarian, you know. It's that yeah, what you guys said earlier about the underdog. Fucking weird. Very telling. I guess you could technically lie during a polygraph, so pleading the fifth, saying I do not recall wouldn't make a difference. Yeah, if you're planning to lie, your best bet is just to not take the polygraph, which is your right. Sleuth, get out of my head. That's the first thing I thought of West Memphis 3. Yeah, you want to talk about oh man, that is awful. That case is and what's sad is the case is unsolved till this day. And they have DNA evidence on the shoelaces. All right, I'm going to catch up on the chat and then we're out of here. The bullet cannot be traced to his individual gun. Yes, it can. Much as they want to say it can. No, it can. 100%. That is a fact. It can be matched to the same gun in the same way that a fingerprint can be matched to a person. I mean, they don't know if there's another person out there that has your exact same fingerprint. They just know that the probability is astronomical. It's the same way it works with metal. Nothing is cut exactly the same, whether it's been cut with a laser or put into a mold. It's just the way that metal is. It's not consistent. So they can 100% prove that it came from his weapon. And apparently they already have. Yeah, it'll be the families who will never have justice. Well, if he's the guy, he'll be retried eventually. But yeah, if he's acquitted, that's most likely because they can prove that bullet came from his gun. And I'll be happy with that because that's the one reason why I suspect him. That's funny. We're taking pictures for a school project. Could be wrong, but something made me think so. Plus, family has said before crime, they were having girl talk. In my opinion, lots more on the phone. Yeah, and they were up late. You don't need to have access to the Anthony Shots account to stalk a young girl on social media, especially somebody who is so active like Libby, and somebody who has access to not only possibly the daughter's accounts on a home computer now that she's moved out, but also the the brother-in-law that passed away. You're now over there going through his items, getting his affairs in order, maybe finding cell phones, a laptop, being like, "Hey, can I have this?" Yeah, you can take that. Well, now you're stalking young girls and nobody even knows you have this new laptop or a burner phone. Yep, he told Dan Doolan 1:30 to 3:30. Regardless of what he says now, that's what he said. If he has an alibi, definitely would change my opinion. It would take away from the bullet. Be like, yeah, it's possible. If the dude's got an alibi and you can prove where he was, yeah, that bullet, man, it's just going to be one of those things, but it is possible. But not with him there, not with the witnesses, not with the timeline, and then the bullet on top of it. It's like a triad. Take one of those points away, it just goes flat. Yeah. Let's make that a rule. We don't mention trash. Especially pudgy, ugly trash. $100. His name was Robert Paulson. Orson Welles. I like Orson Welles. I like that Nostradamus documentary. He did a good job on that. That's old school. I have it on my channel too. Parts of it anyway. Yeah, and the thing is we don't know, right, Sparky? So to jump to that conclusion, I mean, we know there's a lot of people that age that do horrible crimes, but to accuse her of that without any proof, like what the fuck? It's so weird to me. And then to try to say, "Oh, well, I'm there, I'm here doing what I do for Abby and Libby. So I'm going to go ahead and disrespect her sister and her family." They don't give a shit about Abby and Libby or anybody really. Everything they do as far as supporting Richard Allen is for their own benefit. And they can explain that to their therapists. I'm sure they all have one. Not that that's a bad thing or anything. I'm just saying, I'm pretty sure they definitely need one. Beth says Richard Allen wasn't even incarcerated a month before he told his wife if it was too much for her, he'd tell law enforcement everything. He wasn't in psychosis then. The court definitely didn't believe he was. And that's all that matters. Too late now. Now they got to argue about it in court. 100% Tamara. Never go to a secondary location ever. You fight and scream the second that your assailant or whoever this creep is tells you he's there to hurt you. Pulls out a gun or a knife. It's risky. You know, you may not make it, but you definitely ain't going to make it once you get to where they need you to be. All they're going to do is get away now. I mean, it's fucking risky. But it's going to be a lot more risky, you know, down the hill and across that creek. Need to put up a fight there. Fight or flight. All right, let's go to one or two more. Cheeks. I'm not 100% Richard Allen is guilty. Either am I. But I am 100% that the Richard Allen Fan Club is 100% idiots. Does that count? Yes. I will support that comment. Remember, most of these folks were these Ron Logan accusers, GP accusers. It's just weird. The same people who attacked the family are the same ones that accused the GP character, accused Ron Logan. And that same group is now, where are they? Supporting Richard Allen. You think that that's a coincidence? I mean, they all have it in common. That was a good one, Cheeks. All right, guys. Shout out to our new member. Thank you, Carrie. Big flex from the Cheeks. The Cheeky Cheeks. Boston Christian, Joey, and Knockface. The very generous super chat / super sticker looking thing. Truffles, Richard Allen did place himself on the trails. Exactly. Hey, Thin Mint. Welcome in. You're late. Always watching from the brushes. Either my dog hates Richard Allen. Smart dog. Dogs can sense people. They got good senses. They can sense good or bad people. Well, most dogs can. All right, zipping down to the bottom. Way behind. Bootleg pass. Please don't drag victims' families into personal delusions. Yeah, that's why we do what we do. And that's why we remember the victims. You know, it's for a reason. Alrighty, guys, that's going to do it for today's live stream. Guess we can go into a little bit about what we got going on coming up. Tomorrow we'll be covering the Darlene Holst case. That's a cold case out of Indiana, place called Argus. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. 1984. So make sure you guys catch that one. Thank you. Thanks for becoming a member. Look forward to seeing you in some of the members only live streams that are going to be coming up here. All right, guys, you take care of yourselves. Hit that like button on the way out. Don't forget to share this video if you could. And if you need to get a hold of me, you can email me at sleuthintuition@gmail.com. If you guys want to go purchase some merch, you can do that at sleuthintuition.com. And just get a hold of me. Replay crew, you know what to do. Drop a comment and we'll get back to you. But until next time, everybody, peace.